Entering the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
That Mayo Experience presented by Underdog. Code Mayo at Underdog right now. Get your deposit bonus of up to $1,000 plus a free pick in the Pick'em game. Let's go to Portrush to continue our coverage of the 2025 Open Championship. David Bieleski is on the scene. Well, maybe he's in his hotel room now, but he's been on the scene for the entire week. How has Portrush been, sir?
Hey, good evening. Yeah, good to be with you, mate. It's look, it's absolutely unreal. I can't probably describe in enough words just the beauty and masterpiece that I think this golf course is, and we're definitely in store for a pretty amazing 4 days of the last major championship of the year. It's always a bit sad when you get to July. It feels a little too early to be at the last major championship of the year, but this is going to be a pretty special place, and I think that we're in for a pretty enthralling Open Championship this year.
So you've been in the press conferences. We'll get to Rory, the question you asked Rory in a bit. I want to get some insight on what some of the other players are saying, but you walked the course as well. Is there anything that you've noticed? Because Niall Lyons was on Sunday's show, and he had commented, I think he lives about 45 minutes from Portrush. The thing that you don't really realize until you get there is how kind of elevated some of these green complexes are, which is not really like the traditional open rota courses.
Yeah, look, that's spot on. It's one of those things. They say the same thing about Augusta National. I haven't had the privilege of covering the Masters just yet, but they say the same thing of you don't really appreciate all the undulations and the elevation changes until you're there in person. And that's just a factor of watching it on TV. I mean, you're translating a 3D picture into a 2D plane, and you just can't really appreciate the size of some of these elevation changes. I mean, the first is basically directly uphill. You've got this internal out of bounds all the way down the side. Rory McIlroy knows that very well after 2019 and the horror show that was his first hole at his home Open, and one that he's certainly going to be looking to make this make right this time around. So it's incredibly hilly. The dunes are just massive. I mean, I posted a picture on my Twitter at Deep Dive Golf, and that was actually at Port Stewart, but it gives you a bit of a perspective of just how big some of these sand dunes are. And it's one of those classical old time links courses in some ways, in that the course itself is sort of set down amongst the dunes, and you've got the major dunes sort of at the edge of the beach that kind of shields a few of the holes over that side. Whereas I find with the more modern kind of Open Championship links golf courses, they sometimes, like say the Renaissance Club, they build up on top of the dunes. For example, you're looking at some beautiful pictures at the moment. This was at the sunset at Port Stewart last night. We're down at Harry's Shack, which is just to the left of that photo, and it was quite funny because we were in there, and Tyrrell Hatton turned up. A few of the golfers actually come down to that spot. It's just down the road basically from Port Stewart Golf Club, which is another masterpiece. And if you go to that photo with the bunker, I mean, those little people there are on the putting green, and then you've got those are sand dunes with grass growing over the top of them in the back. So it was kind of cool to be able to capture that photo. That's at Port Stewart, not Portrush, but it gives you an idea of just the size and the immensity of some of these dunes. It's absolutely epic, and I personally think the golf course is a masterpiece.
Well, you're known for tipping all over the world, all the different types of tours. What do you see when you're trying to assess what kind of player can actually prevail here? Like, I'm under the impression that, listen, if you're going to hit it as long as possible and as straight as possible, you're probably going to be fine. That might be the answer to every single golf course on earth. But if you had to pick a player type, would you want, because some of these holes are going to be clubbed down and even some of the longer ones are going to be into the wind or with the wind, do you think you can get away with not being a bomber, but making it up with big accuracy?
Yeah, I do think so, and there's a couple of reasons why. I mean, this golf course is, and a few of the players have said this to us in the media at the press conference, that it is incredibly well bunkered, and they've actually forgotten kind of how well bunkered it was since 2019, and they sort of get here and they realize just where those bunkers are placed are so strategic in nature, and they're still very relevant, which isn't true of all links courses. Sometimes you just hit over all of that danger and not bring them into play if you're long enough, and that's not really the case at Portrush. At almost every landing area, there's some sort of fairway bunker in play. Even when you are hitting with the driver, they can be in play at 320 yards, 300 yards. And then even if you're playing it safe and playing with a 2-iron off the tee, there's often another little bunker there as well. So when you're looking at that, it's I think finding fairways is really going to be key. And I mean, I've been traveling through the UK the last 3 weeks, and I mean, bear in mind this is the UK summer, and so of course you'd kind of expect there to be a bit of rain, and there just really hasn't been. Like I've been in Europe, Paris, London, Cornwall, Manchester, Liverpool. We've had about a half day of rain. Most rain we actually had was today, and it was just showers, really, like nothing substantial. So it is playing pretty firm and fast out there. It is starting to firm up. The greens themselves are probably a little bit soft, but they're apparently getting firmer, is what the players tell me. And so I think the fairway is going to be pretty tricky to hold. And when you look at the runoff from the fairway to sort of the first cut, after the first cut, it's just thick fescue. I saw Ben Griffin get into there, and basically it was par 5. He just had to hack the ball out and went maybe 100 yards up the fairway, like maybe not even that. It's pretty brutal. It's a real penalty if you find the rough off the tee. And I do think that if it does stay firm, not too windy, then you'll be able to find fairways would be really the key for me, because I think you'll get a decent amount of runoff, and if you can hit some of those key slopes, say down 17 is a big downwards par 4, but a few of those players were driving that green because the wind was behind them, and if you can catch the slope, it will basically feed into a hollow just below the putting surface. And so even the shorter hitters will be able to do things like that. As always with links golf, depends on the weather, depends what the wind's doing. If it's blowing into, then that's going to be difficult for anybody. But so far, it's looking like for me that driving might actually be pretty important. And then of course approach. I think it's always going to be the basics of driving accuracy and greens and regulation. I think whoever tees the green, the golf course will be pretty close to lifting claret jug by the end of the week.
I've been playing under the impression that, I mean, someone like Ludwig, Victor, hell, I mean, I bet Straka, but he can go up and down on this kind of thing. But with Ludwig and Victor, especially, just how bad they are at chipping off of tight surfaces, basically Florida golf style stuff. And I've been led to believe that that's what is going to be the case around Portrush this week if you miss the green. That you're going to have to get the ball up. You're going to have to stop it. There's going to be an incredible amount of touch that's required from green side here. Would you say that's going to be the case?
Yeah, that's bang on. And I was talking to a couple of locals here, because I mean the Irish are just a bit like us Kiwis. We're just always keen for a banter, or in Ireland they say what's the crack. That's the kind of banter that we get back and forth. And I was talking to a couple of the locals, and they sort of said how actually a lot of the runoff areas over the years have sort of moved back. The rough has moved back, and there's now shorter grass around the green. So I do think that's certainly the case. And if you're not finding the green, you're either finding a bunker or you're feeding into one of these hollows that all the slopes and undulations lead you into. They're generally tight lies, as you said, and you're gonna have to be able to get up and down from those spots. So I'd probably think that's a very fair assessment of what they're going to face. We've seen a lot of players just on these practice days chucking balls into the different hollows where they might end up, knowing where the pin placements are going to be and trying to get up and down from those spots. And it's pretty tricky. I think that you've got that creativity element. I mean, that's kind of the thing that Jordan Spieth's always done very well at, the creativity around the greens. It's not just you can't just come in with a 60-degree wedge and just hack it out. Like, you're going to have to think about a 8-iron or 4-iron, or even a little 5-wood even when you're around these greens, or putting as well is also an option in certain spots. So you are going to have to be pretty creative, and undoubtedly there'll be really finding a few spots like that. It's interesting you mentioned Sepp Straka, because I had the chance to meet his caddy today, Dwayne Bock. Had about 4 or 5 minutes speaking with him. And look, I really like Sepp Straka this week. I'm going to be betting him this week as well. He'll be making my betting card. So there's some free info for your subscribers. They can double down on that one. So look, he mentioned that Sepp played 9 holes today. He was playing great. He thought he was striking the ball really well. He said it was pretty soft but firming up. And look, he thought he just said, you know, he loves the style of golf. He loves links golf. And he also mentioned, he said he's very focused on making the Ryder Cup team. And I thought that was interesting, because he brought that up of his own volition and just said, you know, look, he's really, the Ryder Cup's on his mind, and he really wants to go and try and retain that trophy at Bethpage Black in New York later this year. And so I thought that was interesting, because it's almost as if he's marked this tournament as, hey, you know, if I play well or go and win it, I'm basically assured of being in that European Ryder Cup team later this year. So I thought that was very interesting, and certainly gave me a lot of positive thoughts towards Sepp Straka's chances this week, given his accuracy as well. So I think that's a fine bet. Pat, I'll double down on it and back that for you as well.
So yeah, this is what I like to hear. If you go to CoolBet right now, if you're in Canada and outside of Ontario, you go to CoolBet, you hit the description right now. You can find the link that goes directly to the drop page, but you'll find the boost of Sepp Straka back up to 65-1 if you're still looking for it. You know, we got it in at 100. It was 75 over the weekend. It's now cratered all the way down to 50 and 55. At CoolBet, you can get that back up to 65-1 right now. Smash the like while you're here. After the live ends, in the comment section, please give me your pick to win down in the comments, and you'll be in a draw for a free PXG driver. Now, David, I don't want to step on your picks too much, but outside of Sepp, is there anyone else? Is there anyone? Okay, put it this way. I can't figure out who to bet at the top of the board. Right now, Russell Henley is the lowest odds that I have, and I have him at 65-1. I think he's even 75-1 at this point, if you were going to go bet him. But I don't have anyone shorter than that. Do you have anyone from the top that you can sell me on?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just going to give a bit of a plug to my homeboy, Ryan Fox, because not down the bottom of the board, but I do think Foxy's got a very good chance. Got a chance to have a one-on-one interview with him today, and I think he's in a really good space. And he certainly spoke about his love for this area, his results around this part of the world. I mean, we're staying in Port Stewart, which is about a 15-minute drive to Portrush. It's basically the next village along in the coast. Foxy finished 4th here in 2017 when the Irish Open was held at Port Stewart Golf Club, the one where featured that image that you posted up of the June. And then at Portrush in 2019, he broke a record for the lowest back nine at an Open Championship ever. Went on an insane run of 6 birdies and 7 holes, and finished 16th. Its best major championship finish. Since then, he's won the Alfred Dunhill Links, and then the last month, of course, won the Canadian Open over in your neck of the woods, and the Myrtle Beach Classic as well. So he's in fine form. He's played very well in this area. He loves links golf. I don't see a reason not to beat him this week. So I'll give you that one. And then towards the top of the board, I mean, look, I really think that one thing I found very interesting, I know that you might go to the Rory McIlroy press conference later, but Rory came out Monday morning, first thing in the morning, surprised everyone by turning up. Of course, he'd been in contention at the Scottish Open the night before, landed off his flight at 1 a.m., apparently got about 4 hours sleep. He was out of the golf course first thing in the morning, played a full 18 holes. Tuesday morning, he did it again, surprised fans. First thing in the morning, was back out, played another full 18 holes. And, you know, that's unusual for Rory McIlroy. He doesn't usually do that. Like, if anything, he's going out and playing 9 holes. You know, he's of the caliber of player that he can get a vibe for the golf course and kind of ride off that. And it might not be appealing to bet the second favorite, but you know, this is one that he will really want, and I think that his preparation shows that in terms of the time and dedication that he's given this, perhaps above and beyond other major championships. The other one I'd mention is Xander Schauffele, who's the defending champion. Again, I think he's playing great golf. He's 8th last week at the Scottish Open. He won the Open Championship at Royal Troon. I think PGA Nationals also an interesting comp course to have a look at if you're looking for some comp courses. That again adds to that Sepp Straka theory. He's a bit of an expert around that golf course because with the elevation changes that you mentioned, so the higher greens, the wind, complex wind as well, is always a factor there in Florida. So I think that's a reasonable comp to have a look at. But look, Xander in the press conference, he seemed very calm, very collected, and nothing really seemed to phase him. He was kind of unflappable in his usual kind of Xander Schauffele way, sort of just taking the middle ground and very easygoing and relaxed. And I actually think that kind of temperament around Royal Portrush will really suit him, because you are going to find trouble here. I think it's going to play pretty tough. I'm predicting a winning score of somewhere between -12 to -16. I don't think it's going to be overly easy. There are going to be some guys who go and post some scores, because there are scoring holes out here. The par fives. The fifth hole is a potentially drivable par 4 with a huge ravine cliff off the back. So if you get it wrong, it goes very wrong. But if you get it right, definitely an eagle opportunity, at least a birdie. And then same with 17 is potentially a drivable par 4 as well. So look, I think there will be some scores posts out there, but I think overall, I mean, Shane Lowry said to me yesterday, he said if you went out there today and you shot an under par round in the wins that we had here yesterday, you'd probably be doing pretty well. So there will be some scores out there, but overall, it's going to be a tricky golf course. And Xander, his calm kind of temperament and be able to take those ups and downs in his stride, may just find himself trying to go back to back, which would be an incredible feat.
I would be surprised, but maybe I shouldn't be. He did have a very nice week at the Scottish, especially in terms of approach. He's mentioned you hit it in the fairway, you can control those irons. All of a sudden, you're doing pretty well. And he's had some, even besides the win, he's had some great Open Championship run too. So here's what I got going on with my betting card. I got Henley, I got Straka, I have Ryan Fox already on that list, and Hideki. Those are the 4 main ones that I have. In addition to that, I've gone down the board. I have Nick Taylor at 150 to 1, and these are all with the 8 placements as well. Lucas Glover and Chris Kirk, both at 300 to 1 with the 8. So I just kind of circled off PGA National guys, maybe guys that have putted really well at Kapalua over the years. This might actually work to your Xander theory as well, because I was trying to think, PGA players so rarely get to play on slow-ish greens. It's usually super fast greens, and they're just not going to see that this week. It's going to be too hard to get them lightning fast. They're going to play slower than normal. Where do these guys play that actually have slow greens outside of the Scottish Open? The only one I could think of would be Kapalua.
I think that's spot on. That's basically what I've gone with as well. Because you think Kapalua slow greens, but then elevation changes, undulations, mainly big green complexes. There's a lot there that makes sense. Look, nobody's going to go out and shoot -35 this week. We all know that. But I think that there's worse comp courses that you can take. And look, I hate to compare golf courses to Augusta National and use Augusta National as a comp course. But if you look at the 2019 leaderboard, you had Bobby Mack right up there in his very first Open Championship, finishing in the top 10. John Rahm obviously was right up there as well. Then a number of other players, even guys like Danny Willett, like we're right up there. And look, Danny Willett, fine golfer, obviously, and a Masters champion, but obviously few and far between in terms of his streaks and where he really found success. So the fact he was right there as well. And again, if you think of those things, elevation changes, undulation, that's all in there when it comes to Augusta National. And just in terms of a pure scorecard, it plays very similar in terms of yardages. If you look at Augusta National and contrast it to the scorecard at Royal Portrush. So look, I think there's a lot of good validity to the Century and Plantation course, a couple of kind of comp as well. The only thing I'd guess I'd also mention is now that tee times are out, and this is always the tricky thing when you're putting in your future bets, but look, there does look to be like there's going to be a weather edge. All the players were talking about it, all the media knew about it. It's pretty much well known, like Thursday morning was the time you wanted to be out there, because Thursday morning looks calm, and then it's getting windier Thursday afternoon, and then Friday morning looks windier, and then Friday afternoon's calming down. So kind of getting the best of both worlds at the moment on that Thursday AM, Friday PM draw. So a few of those names are in there. Ryan Fox is paired with Hideki Matsuyama and Matt Fitzpatrick. So two major championships and one in waiting, I would say. And then they're getting that morning tee time. But some of those guys, like, look, I really want to bet Russell Henley. When I was walking around early this morning at the golf course, I was like, like Russell Henley, Sepp Striker, like sending me good vibes of this kind of golf course and what's going to be required. Unfortunately, Russell Henley did get the afternoon tee time on Thursday, so that may be enough to just put me off clicking on that one, given he is going to be on the worst side of the draw by the looks of things as it currently stands.
Yeah, weirdly, it's tough to know. I have the weather. We should talk about the weather. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, so keep this in the back of your mind, is how much different is this Open, at least weather-wise, condition-wise, going to play than 2019? Because we keep talking about, hey, here's what the leaderboard looked like, and I've been the biggest proponent of this. And here's where other courses where those guys all kind of do well. Hell, you could look at the Truist this year and like squint really hard at that leaderboard and be like, huh, those are all PGA National guys, and those were the guys who played well at Portrush at the same time. So is that a course, or are we just talking ourselves in circle because we have such little information about this course in general that what are people saying about how it's playing this year versus what it did 6 years ago? Is it going to be close to the same?
Look, I think that's a fair point to make. I guess the counter to that would be like that the course then also meets the eye test in terms of, as you said, the elevation changes, the undulation, the exposure to the wind, what the course demands, which typically has been, I guess, strong off the tee is really the key to starting well at Portrush and then finding greens from there. But I do think with the firmness, maybe driving actually gets a bit of a bump this year because it is a little bit firmer, I'd say, than it was in 2019, which played a little bit softer. And obviously we saw a big disparity in scores. I mean, there was a wide range of scores from Shane Lowry right in front to further down the board. But look, I mean, again, I guess it's just adding to that Sepp Striker narrative if you bring Tourist into it. I don't think Philly's the worst, like Philly Cricket Club's the worst comp to a links course in terms of what it demands as well. And I think that's a reasonable conclusion to perhaps draw there too.
So let's bring up the weather. So as you mentioned, right now, at least in my mind, into looking at this, you mentioned it. The AM Thursday gets kind of the best. I mean, the best being relative. It doesn't look great on Thursday morning, and then Friday afternoon actually looks a little bit better. And I think that the thing that people forget about the Open Championship is that everyone goes off the first tee. That these days are going to be super long. It's not like, you know, this guy tees off here. Oh, this guy's going to play the back. And then it's a new set of people. It's just continuous players off the first tee. So when you're thinking about strategizing and putting people together with tee times, if you do find a good pocket, or even for your DraftKings line, if you're trying to jam people together, I'll talk about this more with Tambo tomorrow live on the show. But like there's clusters and pockets of people in tee time groups that you can kind of target 2-hour increments and go that way. But the way that you see it right now, is that sort of the narrative around the course that you want to have the AM then PM? That's the way it's going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, that's even what the players were saying themselves. Like the players made mention of the weather draw and the favorable weather draw. They mentioned there was going to be Thursday morning, Friday PM. Some of them sort of tried to defend the fact that they were going to be in the worst side of the draw going off Thursday afternoon, and that, you know, that'd still be all right basically. But I think the fact that they even had to sort of bring it up and raise it themselves in those sort of circumstances probably alludes to the fact that they are actually a little bit bitter that they're on the wrong side of the draw, and they're just kind of sort of subtly venting a little bit of being perceived to be getting the worst of it. Look, as you and I know, Pat, like the weather in this part of the world can change in an instant. We use a bunch of different weather models over at Deep Dive Golf to try and get it as accurate as possible right up until the last 24 hours, which is really essential for DFS lineup building. As you'll well know as well, if you do get those pockets, I mean, the Stenson Mickelson Open Championship comes to mind, where it was basically a very, very small time window. I think it was about 48 minutes, and it was like if you were in that 48 minutes, you played a different golf course. And they may seem an extreme example, but it does illustrate that with the Open Championship, as you said, I mean, the first tee time, I believe, is about 6:30 in the morning, 6:35, yeah, and then the last tee time is pretty late in the day, 4:16 p.m. because, I mean, if you don't see behind me through those curtains there, it's still light here and it's 10:25 at night, so that's why they can go out so late. So there is the added factor of, as you said, everybody's gone off that first tee, and the time window for everyone to go out and for the weather to be completely different at different times is so much more at the Open compared to, say, a shotgun tournament, or, you know, certainly like a signature event where you've got a very small field all going outside of a a 2-hour time window where the chance of a weather edge developing is much smaller than something like the Open, where it almost seems like it's always in play. It's just a factor of the tournament. I kind of love it. It adds a bit of drama and a bit of excitement. I think it also gives us the ability to identify edges in the betting markets as well. We rely on weather pretty heavily in terms of our models and how we run things as well, because bookmakers are just notoriously slow to react to the weather in my eyes, and it's a real opportunity to get a bit of leverage.
So if you're going to make any, let's say even first round leader bets or pick up one more player, if the weather would hold this way, and this is really what I wanted to get, is that I put out my article on Sunday. You can go retweet that right now on X to get into a draw for a free driver if you want to. And you can do it again tomorrow when I release my cheat sheet. But the weather looked completely different. And how long, you said within 24 hours, but realistically, how long are you going to wait in order to hold back on some of those bets? How long are you going to wait to fire where you can trust it? And even if you see it in the forecast, I mean, you've been there for a few days now. I'm sure the weather just kind of being that close to the coast and knowing like just how wind can swirl, how rain can come in, I would guess that can kind of come in out of nowhere.
Yeah, look, it can, although we've kind of got it right. I mean, look, we're going down to the golf course and walking around. I don't want to be stuck in a thunderstorm when I'm out there. So we've done pretty well at getting the weather right so far. It's stayed true to forecast so far. I mean, we'll be publishing our bets this evening. So that's what's sort of like, 48 hours or 36 hours until the tournament starts at this point. So they'll be going out this evening, and we're pretty confident it's going to be Thursday AM, Friday PM. Certainly in terms of first round leaders, I'll be looking for Thursday AM for those kind of options if you like to play that market. And certainly if I was playing DFS, and I always recommend to people that they also do the counter. Yeah, because you do see it flip, and if you do say 60-70% of your lineups going full AM, some sort of mix, and then say just chuck 5% or 10% of your lineups doing the complete opposite, going what nobody else is doing and go in the afternoon, because we have seen instances, the Players Championship a few years ago comes to mind, where everybody thought it was going one way. We actually over a deep dive golf said it was going the other way, because we saw the thunderstorms and said it was going to delay play and the weather edge was going to flip, and it did. So it does play to sometimes just have a little insurance up your sleeve in that regard.
Let's look at the tee times, and I'm going to throw them up right now. And if I'm like, Harrington's out there, Nikolai Højgaard's out there, Tom McKibben is out there. I'm trying to think of real threats here in order to win. Have you seen any of the live guys out on the course?
I saw a little bit of Tyrrell Hatton, but then I also saw Tyrrell Hatton at Harry's Shack drinking a large Guinness pint. So I don't know how many of those he had that evening, but I would say that he was out practicing very late. We saw him at like 5 o'clock this evening. So who knows what happened there. Look, could have been a few quiet beers, could have been more. I have no idea. Look, Hatton was on a lot of people's lips this week as a potential. I've seen his name float around a lot. I'm not entirely convinced. I certainly don't think I can get there yet with Bryson. I was in the press conference today with Bryson DeChambeau, and he sort of alluded to the fact he needs more links reps. I asked him, what moves will kind of be made to add links courses to the live schedule, and it seems it's still a sticking point, and there's a few things in the background that are preventing that from happening. I really think Valderrama is like the worst kind of course that they could be playing the week before a major championship. It's just so vastly different. I love Valderrama. It's a great golf course, but it is not the type of course that you want to be preparing for a links championship the week later, especially with a major on the line.
Well, I mean, maybe it will help because you got to play in the wind. Who knows?
Yeah, there is that element. It was windy in live this year, which live and this year was at least a little bit windy. So you have got that element going. Although I do think it is quite a different test. Ram talked about that. He talked about the fact being windy was pretty helpful in terms of preparation, getting used to playing the wind. Again, it's a little bit different because there's so many trees at Valderrama, right? So it's a little bit more shielded than this course where there's literally not one single tree on the property, and the only sort of guard against the wind is the dunes, and so you've really got to control your ball flight and then control your spin into those greens, because you catch the wrong slope, it goes it'll run off, and if you catch the right slope you can feed it towards the hole. So a little bit again like Augusta in that way.
Guys that are out in the reason I mention that because Louis is out early. Cam Smith is out in the third group of the day, looking at it right now. Phil is out early. Dustin Johnson, Lucas Herbert, they're all out. And we haven't seen them get many reps, but Cam Smith seemed like he actually played a little bit better. I'm trying to target potentially this part of the card, at least for first round leaders. I think that the weather is probably good enough, especially on Saturday and even into Sunday, that you can probably make a charge if you're playing well enough that the bad weather isn't going to be so detrimental that there's going to be blow up scores from there, obviously. But I think you could potentially play your way out of it. But first round leader wise, I think that I want earlier the better. Would you tend to agree with that, or do you think you can kind of take it from anywhere?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, look, I really don't mind going to that Ryan Fox, Sepp Striker kind of space. I mean, Sepp Striker feels like a natural bet just given his volatility and his natural upside that he possesses. I mean, he just can get so incredibly hot with the putter as well. He goes off at 9:36, so he's not first thing in the morning, but he should still be able to benefit from being out there pretty early. One guy that I really do love in the wind, and we haven't seen much of him. He hasn't been doing much, but is Lucas Herbert. I mean, he did really well at Southern Hills PGA Championship. I know because he was on our betting card that week, but he played very, very well in the wind, and same when he won in Bermuda, again, just horrifically windy conditions. So if the wind's going to pick up, then a sneaky first round leader bet on someone like Lucas Herbert, who on his day could be a fabulous putter, might not be might surprise a few and put himself into somewhere towards that top of the leaderboard. You never know.
All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with David right afterwards. We're going to see his press conference where he got to ask Rory a question, his question being answered by Rory, and a whole lot more with the players that he's spoken to so far this week. Stay tuned. I was having some problems sleeping. When anyone has little kids, that's probably going to be the case. They'll come up, wake you up in the middle of the night for no real apparent reason. So you're waking up, you're going back to sleep, you're waking up, going back to sleep. It's not the best sleep. I put my Apple Watch on and tried to track my sleep tracker. It was not going well. A lot of that changed once I got a Helix mattress, however, because I was able to customize it to both what I want, what my wife wants, and now we're sleeping throughout the night. The little noises that would just normally wake you up when you're not sleeping well, no longer the case for me. No more back pain either, because I'm actually sleeping on a mattress that is perfect for what my back demands, which is a lot because I have a terrible back. The one that I had before my Helix mattress, I spent a lot of money on it. It was bad after like 2 years. It had like the divot in it from where I sleep. It was unflippable. It was a horrendous waste of money. Not only is the Helix mattress I have now way better, it was also significantly cheaper. And it just showed up to my door in a box. Very easy to get onto my bed frame and just start using right away. So you can have all your problems solved with a Helix mattress as well. So you can go to helixsleep.com/Mayo for 27% off site-wide. That is exclusive to listeners of the Pat Mayo Experience. That's helixsleep.com/Mayo for 27% off site-wide. Make sure to enter my show name after checkout so they know that I sent you. helixsleep.com/Mayo. Feeling stuck in your daily wellness routine? You're not alone. Our friends at Cornbread Hemp, they heard you. Their organic CBD gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress and poor sleep or just needing a moment to unwind. Personally, I started taking them before a round of golf because I've been dealing with this tennis elbow issue. It's starting to go away, but it tightens up on me throughout the course of the round. So just when I pop a Cornbread Hemp CBD gummy, all of a sudden loosen right up, playing a lot better. Highly recommended if your muscles seize up or get tight during a round of golf. CBD might be just what you need to level up your daily routine. Cornbread Hemp uses only the best parts of hemp plant, the flower, for purest and the most potent CBD. No fillers, no junk, just full spectrum goodness. Right now, they're offering 30% off your first order. So go to cornbreadhemp.com/PatMayo and use code PatMayo at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/PatMayo with code PatMayo to get 30% off your first order. Coming back on the Pat Mayo Experience. Once again, smash the like, sub to the channel, and turn on those notifications because we're going live again Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time with Toe Tag and Tambo. David Bieleski live at Portrush right now on the line with me. David, what's Portrush like compared to some of the other places you've been to as you've been traveling around Europe?
Yeah, look, it's pretty awesome. The people here are really friendly, and the main thing I'd say is that the excitement of staying close to the Open. If you ever get the chance to come over, I'd highly recommend it, because they're not small, they're not big cities, right? Like these are small kind of coastal towns, and they get to host this, every 5, 6, 7 years if they're lucky, and obviously they had a big gap in between 1951 and 2019 when they were first hosting the Open Championship. And the hype around the town, the energy in the town, the local pubs are fantastic. Everybody's just willing to have a chat. You meet some great people and just share great stories together of what you've been experiencing and seeing. And it's a very, very cool place. And in terms of the coastline itself, it's just absolutely beautiful. I mean, I come from New Zealand, as many followers will know, and that's a very beautiful country in its own right. But the spectacular sort of cliffs that just, it's like the land just ends, and the cliff face just goes straight into the Atlantic Ocean, and it's pretty stunning. So tomorrow we're going to take a break from the golf. We've been at the golf the last couple of days. I'm going to go up and see the Giant's Causeway, which is an iconic site of natural beauty up here in Northern Ireland. The other boys, while I was in the press conference today, went to the Bushmills Whiskey Distillery, oldest whiskey distillery in the world, 300 years old. So they went for a whiskey tasting before joining me at the golf course. So we've been having a great time out here. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I know you had a great time getting into the press room, asking some questions. We actually have the video of your question to Rory, which is a great question, but I do want you to expand on it a little bit afterwards. Jared, hit it.
Rory, in 2006 at the Dubai Desert Classic, you were a 16-year-old amateur playing with Peter O'Malley and Robert Coles. I was also 16-year-old, and I was also your scorer that day.
No way.
You told me that day that your 2 goals were to be the world #1 golfer and to complete the career Grand Slam. When you're an elite golfer, as you are, one of the best of the generation, and achieve your lifelong dream like that, what does the process of resetting your goals look like?
Yeah, I think I think everyone could see over the last couple of months how I struggled with that. I've done something that I've told everyone that I wanted to do, but then it's like I still feel like I have a lot more to give, and it, talk about the pressure being off, yes, but anyone that sits up here at this table, we're all competitors. We all want to do better. We all think we can, just get a little bit extra out of what we have. And but yeah, it's taken me, and it hasn't taken me that long. I mean, geez, it's been 10 weeks or whatever it is. It hasn't been that long, but I think just and I probably haven't, I've alluded to this, but I probably just didn't give myself enough time to let it all sink in. But that's the nature of professional golf. They do a very good job of keeping you on the hamster wheel, and you feel like it's hard to get off at times. But yeah, it's been an amazing year, and the fact that I'm here, at Portrush with the green jacket, having completed that lifelong dream, as you said. I want to do my best this week to enjoy everything that comes my way, and enjoy the reaction of the fans, and enjoy being in front of them and playing in front of them. But at the same time, I want to win this golf tournament, and I feel like I'm very capable of doing that.
How big of a moment was that for you to be able to ask Rory those questions in the press room?
Yeah, it was a huge moment. I mean, I could tell you my heart was racing. My heart was absolutely pounding on my chest getting that question out. And look, it was a full circle moment for me because, in my own journey, I've had that own personal story arc, and this kind of like completed it in some ways. I mean, I'm pretty open in sharing the fact that I've been sober for 11 years now, and so as part of that, that journey through recovery and early recovery, unfortunately, having worked at those golf courses, lost some of my memorabilia and mementos that I'd collected over the years, and one of those was a golf ball signed by that 16-year-old Rory McIlroy while we were those two 16-year-olds walking along the golf course there. And something I've really regretted. I mean, it still pains me to this day. And being a golf nerd like I am, I think about it an unreasonable amount. So to be in a position now in my life where I was in a professional setting in a press conference able to ask that question, to go back and look at that clip and to see the genuine sort of emotion and reaction from him. I mean, when I mention Peter O'Malley and Robert Coles, you can see his reaction and the fact that he can clearly remember that moment. You can see it's quite an introspective question as well in a way, and you can see that he's reflecting on that, and you can see it has actually taken him back. And I think in some ways it caught him off guard. I ummed and ahed about how I would end the question. Whether, I mean, the easy way out is just to say, would you ever think that you'd achieve this, or that you'd be here, or that you'd get it done? Which is the easy way, I think. I think the more interesting question is actually, Rory's 35 years old, as am I, and he's got another 10 to 15 years of great golf left in him, but he's achieved something that he's told everyone since he was 8, 9, 10 years old, and that this is what I want to do with my life. He's now done that. And I sort of alluded at time in some of the interviews I did across those first kind of weeks after the Masters, that I thought it could go one of two ways for Rory. It could either be that, he goes out and wins just absolutely everything because he's free of this torment he's clearly been struggling with around Augusta, or the opposite, which is he feels a little bit lost. And I think that we saw a little bit in his answer as well. I mean, he clearly got quite emotional in his answer, which I thought was really special. And I think that the fact that he in some ways sort of wasn't quite sure how to answer. He wasn't like, yeah, I know what my next goal is, and this is what I now want to do. I think it's still something that he's grappling and learning with. But I definitely do think that the motivation is there, just naturally with Royal Portrush, and I don't think the pressure will necessarily get to him as big as it did last time, especially now he has got that career Grand Slam under his belt as well.
It seems like he's been gearing up for this all year. I had spoken with Jeff after the Masters, and like the first time we saw him after he skipped the Heritage, and I told him that, like you said, it could go one of two ways, but it really felt like, the next thing he's probably going to care about is Portrush, and he'll probably just kind of chill out for a little bit and let everything come over him. And I think he kind of alluded to that as well, that maybe he didn't take enough time off or really get to enjoy the moment before getting back into it. That now it seemed like he was a bit more joyful than he was at the PGA Championship or the US Open, or any time that we'd seen him, at least last week. And you had mentioned him getting off the plane, taking a quick nap, basically, and getting back out to the course Monday morning to play 18. It does seem like there's some hop in his step. Did you happen to see Scheffler's press conference today?
No, I didn't, because they moved the time on us. Unfortunately, he was due to be down at 3:30 in the afternoon, and then they actually moved it to 11 in the morning. And I was out on the golf course following Ryan Fox and Hillier, because I was going to be interviewing them both after that, and doing the full walk of the 18 holes to see it. But I did see what he mentioned sort of in the news articles afterwards, and the sort of raw, the key moment, the key question, I guess you're alluding to, when he sort of spoke about the important things in life, and that winning golf tournaments isn't everything, which I thought was a fascinating answer, really. And probably one of the best moments I've seen in press conferences over the last few years, if I'm honest with that answer, because you just got to see a real human being just sharing their story and being honest and vulnerable, and just being pretty forthright with his experiences, which is pretty unbelievable for everything that Scotty Scheffler has achieved and probably will continue to achieve, and probably will keep costing you and me lots of money, Pat.
Yeah, that was my takeaway from it as well. There's a lot of people that seem to have real problems with it, though. Like what a loser.
Well, look, there's a couple of ways you can look at it, I guess. I mean, I take the viewpoint that we've done the tough man gig enough over the last couple of centuries, and I think sometimes it takes a stronger man to admit that you've got emotions and that you're vulnerable, and sometimes you're worried and sometimes you're angry, and that we experience these emotions. And if we look, I mean, in New Zealand, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but there's a lot of young men who struggle with addiction, but also struggle with mental struggles as well, and depression, and not being able to reach out and express themselves. And I actually think sometimes ignoring those people who might be critical of being empathetic, or showing those softer emotions, that sometimes that takes a stronger man than what the other people are alluding to.
Yeah, I was thinking of it more in the sense that people are upset that he's not Michael Jordan, he's not Tiger Woods.
Right.
He's like the only. Of course, he wants to win. He mentioned that, but I actually think it's to his advantage that this isn't the only thing in his life that matters. That if he loses, well, that sucks. But I'm going to try to win every single time. It's not like devastating to him, because DJ always had this thing where, I mean, it's like almost as if DJ didn't care about golf. He hit a bad shot. It was like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to go hit the next one. Scheffler has that, where I find, whether it be Rory, Justin Thomas, Morikawa, these guys go on, like, they spiral a lot of the times when stuff starts compounding bad. So I was so stunned Rory was able to come back at the Masters after that chip on 13. It's like, wow, usually he doesn't do this. This is usually where it goes wrong. Whereas with Scheffler, I think with his attitude and what he was kind of expressing is, it's just golf. If he hits a bad shot, whatever. I'll go and make the best one next time. Like on the next shot. I'm not going to worry about that one. And it feels like that's why he's constantly so good.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that proposition's pretty scary, right? I mean, like the Scotty Scheffler, who just actually doesn't care what happens out on the golf course, really all that much, is a pretty terrifying prospect for not just us punters, but every single golfer who's competing against him. But I think you're spot on right with that. I mean, like he's not the the winning isn't everything. It's the only thing kind of guy. He's the I take it and leave it, and I'll go out and hit my shots, and course manage my way around these golf courses. I think that's one element of his game that probably doesn't get enough credit, is his ability to manage the courses and work with Ted Scott and really, pick their way around these golf courses and manage their scorecard to where they know they need to be to win. And their ability to just hit it kind of one shot at a time is really what sets them apart. And in some ways, I mean, when I mentioned Xander, he does kind of a similar thing, just not as well as Scotty in that regard. He does have the ability to kind of put things aside and go out and just hit one shot at a time, despite Xander often getting a little bit of a hard time not getting across the line when he gets to Sunday. We obviously saw that kind of come right in a pretty big way in 2024 with the two major championships he was able to win.
Outside of you, are there many New Zealanders as part of the press corps?
I think I might be the only one. So, I'm I'm already invested in Ryan Fox, but I'm even more invested by the fact that I might be the only New Zealander in Northern Ireland at the moment, in the media tent anyway. I met George Harper Jr., who is a Kiwi who does a lot of the Open Championship coverage. So we had a good chat out on the golf course. It was good to catch up with him, but he's not necessarily in the press call because he's with the RNA. So he's sort of doing the live interviews with the players walking down the fairways. You'll see a bit of him. Great broadcaster. He does a fabulous job, but within the press tent, haven't met any other Kiwis yet. It may just be me. So if Ryan Fox is victorious this week, I could have a very, very busy and late Sunday night.
Was Daniel Hill, were Fox and Hillier both happy to hear a familiar accent?
Yeah, look, it was awesome. I actually grew up playing at the same golf club as Daniel Hillier. So leading out, talking about that, it's not a big golf club either. I mean, we're talking like a country golf club, really. I mean, back in the day, it's a nice golf club now, but back in the day, they'd just let the sheep out on the golf course, basically, to keep the grass short. I mean, we're talking that kind of country golf club here in New Zealand. And we both actually ended up playing it in Judgeford, just north of Wellington. So, he was pretty stoked to hear that. They were both in great mood. I mean, they're both pretty laid back and easy easygoing like most of us Kiwis are. But yeah, Dan's doing well. And the one question I asked Dan, which I thought was interesting, was on his Dubai Desert Classic. So he pushed Tyrrell Hatton right to the end of the Dubai Desert Classic, finished second just behind him there, Rolex Series event. And I think that in some ways has taken a lot of pressure off him, because last year he basically just scraped keeping his DP World Tour card. When he finished second at the Dubai Desert Classic, he's basically earned enough rating points that his European Tour card's secured for the entire year, allows him to go out and be a bit more freer. And we applied that same theory with Ryan Fox at the Canadian Open. It was like, well, now he's won the Myrtle Beach Classic, the question of the PGA Tour cards out there, he can go out and be aggressive and go and win these golf tournaments rather than, look, do I want to just manage my way to a top 10 here in order to get the FedEx Cup points and retain my card? So I think he was feeling pretty confident. He hasn't been in the best of form. I'll give you that. And when I asked him if we see another repeat of Sir Bob Charles, who was the last New Zealander to win the Open Championship, he immediately said he mentioned Foxy and not himself. So that might be a bit telling as well.
Does it, like, we're talking to Fox, does he realize that people not necessarily expect him to win this week, but really think that he has a good chance of winning this week?
I don't think so. He's a pretty laid-back dude. I've had the chance to interview him once before. This was the first time in person. We've done it via webcam and interviewed him that way before. Previously, he's pretty chilled. He's pretty laid-back. And no, I don't think so. I don't think he has any, I guess, recognition. He knows he's playing well. He knows he's playing good golf. He knows, and he's always said that he knows he has the game to compete with the best in the world when he's at his best. He knows that, and he's kind of confident in himself in that. He's mentioned that in both interviews that I've done with him, actually, which is interesting. So, yeah, in that regard, I think that he's at a golf course he loves. He feels comfortable on length courses, and yeah, definitely has I guess no idea that a lot of people like you and I, Pat, are picking him as a bit of a dark horse this week. But I think he's got a really solid chance. I can't see a reason why not. If he goes out and produces his best stuff, he could well be in contention.
Any other notes that you have, either from talking with Lowry, talking with Bryson, things like that you just kind of picked up being around the course?
Bryce, look, as I said, I think Bryson's still going to struggle with links golf. I think he hasn't quite found it all just yet. He's still tinkering with his irons. You mentioned he's creating these new irons. He wants to have them in play by the Ryder Cup. So, kind of that kind of classic thing. I've not always been a Bryson fan. I thought he came across really well in the press conference. He was quite engaging, quite entertaining. Seemed like a nice guy. I think he has changed and developed over the years from the Bryson of old. I think this new Bryson's a lot more likable, and it's just working out how much of that is him actually genuinely changing as a person, or how much of him sort of realizing that the product of Bryson DeChambeau and the YouTube is a rather profitable exercise in and of itself. But he really plays into that. I just don't think it's necessarily going to be the best golf course for him at this stage of his career. In terms of Lowry, he was in a good mood. I thought he caught a pretty tough break in the press conference. The very first question out of, I won't mention the reporter's name on here, but you can go and find it and work it out. But the very first question was about him enjoying a pint after winning the 2019, and whether he still likes to party or if he's over that phase of his life, essentially calling him an alcoholic, which I thought was pretty rough for your first question at a press conference when you won here in 2019. But look, he was a lovely guy. He replied in just such a professional, didn't bite, didn't engage with it, and just kind of like replied in a joking manner. And he just seems like in a really good mood in that regard. So yeah, like he's yeah, I think he's fairly relaxed. I don't think he necessarily sees it like defending a title. Someone brought that up, and he sort of said, well, the defending champions, the Andrew Schauffele, I didn't win the last one. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised again with the PGA National Links if we're looking at that. Shane Lowry's got a great record there too. So, wouldn't surprise me. I'm not too sure where his tee time is, though, if he's going to get the better weather.
He's right around that Ryan Fox range. I think he's within 40 minutes of like early, but closer to the middle of the tee times, but on the early side, which is kind of where you want it. I think he's out with Xander, actually, weirdly enough, of those sorts of tee times, like right around that block. But is there any one that you've seen out there that just looks lost on links golf?
That's an interesting question.
Like, is there someone we can just see like, yeah, this guy's not going to play well?
Can I tell you someone can I do something else? Can I tell you someone who I saw and was just like actually surprised how well he was hitting the ball? Was Thriston Lawrence, the South African who played really well at the Open last year. I saw him hit a couple of approach shots into that first green and hit this kind of it's a good 30-40 feet up to the first green. And he hit this really low punchy approach shot into that first green and basically striped it right next to the hole, and then dropped another ball for whatever reason, and then just repeated it. So I was a little taken aback with how well he's playing, because he hasn't been playing great on the PGA Tour this season. He's really struggled that step up. So that was one that surprised me out there. Nobody who I'd say looked like they were playing dreadful. I have one. Wyndham Clark looked he was spraying it off the tee. I saw him at the fifth hole, which is that drivable par 4. Just hit some questionable drives. He reloaded a couple times just to try and get it right. So that was interesting. I think with his power, he'll probably feel compelled to go for that green on the fifth as well, because if you cut the corner, it is a drivable par 4. But yeah, I don't know if he's necessarily in the best frame of mind at the moment.
Last one, because good PGA National, good here last time, good like 2 rounds at the US Open, but no idea where his game's at. Have you seen any Brooks out there?
I haven't seen any Brooks this week, unfortunately, mate. So can't tell you there. But look, I've got a dreadful history of getting Brooks Koepka right and wrong. So that guy is an absolute enigma to me, and one puzzle I'm yet to figure out, as many in the golfing industry still struggle to. The thing that baffles me with Brooks is just how few PGA Tour wins he has compared to major championship wins. I mean, that statistic's just absurd in my mind. So no, didn't see him so far this week. But might see him out on the course on Thursday or Friday.
David Bieleski, thanks for doing this, man. I know you got radio hits to back in New Zealand you got to do. You got a busy time. Are you working? I know that you're going to be working while the tournament's going on. Are you going to get a chance to just enjoy the tournament for a little bit?
I'm having a great time regardless. I'll put that out there. But yeah, look, I think that actually it's kind of sounds odd to say, but I think as the tournament goes on, there's going to be less for me to do. There's all the preview stuff. There's all these radio interviews, and it's been a pleasure being on with you again as well, Pat. So thanks for having me. But there's this kind of stuff beforehand, and as the tournament goes on, we'll be doing our round by round picks over at Deep Dive Golf, and who we're like on the course and what we've seen, and a few write-ups and behind the scenes things over there. But yeah, as the tournament goes on, once we get into the Saturday and Sunday, I'm just going to probably, for the most part, be out there enjoying it, and then I've been in press conferences asking a few questions there as well.
All right. Well, you can follow David at Deep Dive Golf. You can find all of his picks up there. I saw someone in the chat said, Pat, why don't you do 2 balls and 3 balls? Honestly, I just forget by the time it gets around to Wednesday. But I know that David's going to have all that information for you if you give him a follow. All right. Smash like while you're here. Sub to the channel. I'll be back live at 9 a.m. Eastern time with Tambo on Wednesday, and maybe even a chat on Wednesday evening for any final questions that you may have. All right. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.